Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing authors of a new book we have coming out. Well, not some, I guess two of you beautiful ladies are here with me today. The book is called Sacred Spaces: Subtle Shifts for Mind, Body, and Home Transformation. And before I introduce you to these amazing women authors that I have, I want to just say a big thank you to Colleen Avis for getting this book together, for attracting a stellar author cast to this project. And Colleen, we love you. We wouldn't be here without you. You have a big mission for this book, and super grateful to know you and to be helping you put this together. So Jamie and Micole, welcome.
Hey Laura. Hi, Micole.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to get this conversation going. So you guys, I've got Jamie Edwards. She's a founder and creator of I Am Lost and Found, a website devoted to luxury and adventure travel. And Micole Noble is a life coach and meditation and yoga instructor who uses consciousness to guide others to their best life. So Jamie, start us off here. Tell us about the amazing chapter that you wrote.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Laura. That's very nice. So as you mentioned, I founded a website called I Am Lost and Found, and I am also a travel writer. But beyond that, I am an avid collector and always have been. I've collected shells, pottery, matchbooks, found objects from our travels around the world. And I put those collections throughout our house. And during the pandemic, when we weren't able to travel, I really realized the power of my collections and how I could remember my best travel memories through these collections. And it was really very therapeutic and a wonderful way to travel when we can't. So my chapter, which is chapter 20, is called How to Unpack: Find the Memories Hidden in Your Travel Collections.
So reading your chapter was a cool inspiration for me, because I have some of these kinds of collections, but you just made me think about them differently. So I got to walk around and look. I have a shell. I don't even know what to call the thing that the shells are in, but it's this little bowl thing, this wooden bowl thing. And I was looking at those kind of in a little bit different way. And I was looking at some of the other things and realizing, oh, I have been collecting that too, And I don't know, you just opened my eyes to it. And it really was a fun sort of thing to think about. What else can people think about when they're walking around their house in terms of creating the sacred spaces for those?
Well, it's interesting because in my case, I didn't even really realize I was collecting things until quite a few years ago, when we had moved from New York to Tokyo, and we had to pack up our life in New York and bring it to Tokyo. And only when we were unpacking in Tokyo did I realize that I had really collected so many things. And what was really wonderful at that point was to, of course, remember where they come from, but then to also group them. Which I think makes for a collection to have so much more drama to it. Like you were saying, having all your shells in one bowl, that kind of thing. I think the best thing someone could do is walk around their house and kind of pay really close attention to things they may not have been paying attention to before. Have they been collecting a certain type of artwork, a certain type of pottery, salt and pepper shakers, vases, and take a keen look around, and then maybe pull those collections together and put them somewhere to be displayed, because I think the power of the collective, the collection, does create that sacred space and that ability to remember where all those pieces came from.
Okay, I have something new for my to-do list this afternoon. So you know what it is? It's the collection of those I don't even know, again, sometimes it's hard to know what to call these. Do you know the strings of little decorative things, the hangy things that are long, like all the little flowers or all the little birds, and they're on colorful strings, but also hanging crystals. So my hangy things, I'm totally getting them together. They're going to go on one window this afternoon,
Nice.
I think. Yeah. That's awesome. It's a really cool thing. And it brings, I think, a smile, especially like you said, in COVID, when you're walking around your house for the 50 millionth time and you haven't been out and you just need a little brightness. Tell me about your favorite place to write about.
Ooh, okay. Oh, my favorite place to write about. I have a soft spot for Africa. I've been lucky enough to go to Africa. I've been to 5 countries in Africa on three different trips. And there is something about Africa that is so otherworldly from our typical life here. I kind of equate it to what it might be like to be on the moon. Feels that different to me. The sounds, the smells, the visuals, the planes, and the life is so simple in some ways. And just I love wildlife and nature, so I feel very at peace there. So that would be my favorite place to write about. It's probably also the hardest because I do love it so much. I think I'm sometimes just a little too close to it to really nail down the right words to say to describe it. So Africa, absolutely.
I hear you on that. I was able to do a trip in 1999. It's been a while now, but I feel so lucky to have been able to travel to both Kenya and Tanzania. It was the safari thing that we were doing, but it was really probably the most spectacular trip I've ever taken. Really cool. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
So, Micole, tell us about your amazing chapter.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks, Jamie. I haven't been to Africa, but after what you shared, it's nearing at the top of my list. I love traveling as well, and gosh, it's so beautiful to hear about that. So my chapter really is the story of my own personal journey, really how I untethered, kind of went back and looked at all these ways during my life that I had been set up to be super responsible for everything. And I like to say I'm a recovering type A. So really it's not a bad thing, right? To be type A and be so detailed. But really what I noticed during the pandemic, again, it just became clear to me that I was really obligated in so many areas of my life that I was like, why? Like, why am I doing this? And how did I get here? And kind of having, that epiphany once again in my life after having had it several years before and decided to become a coach. And I was coaching people to do what they love and have a life they love and all this stuff. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm not even doing that myself right now. So when I kind of went back and put all the pieces together, it became super clear to me as to why I had been operating that way, and then just really took on in the last year undoing that and really creating freedom, which is a huge value of mine and something, again, I really didn't have, but now I do. And then that sacred space, I get to go to Maui, which is where my uncle lives, in Hana, which is a very remote part of the island, which during the pandemic felt like I was on the edges of the earth and just away from everything, and talk about freedom, right? So anyway, that's really how it started, was talking about that, how I created that sacred space to retreat to. Now every single quarter is my commitment to get away and stay for a month there. So it's really beautiful.
What came to my mind was that freedom has to be a universal value, because I hear people talk about it in lots of different kinds of ways. I've heard people talk about financial freedom, and that's one kind, but the freedom to be wherever you want to be, to live your life, is another huge one that I hear people talk a lot about. What else do you want to say about that freedom?
Yeah, well, truly, I agree with you. I think freedom is kind of thrown around in a lot of ways. Obviously, where we live here in the United States, we are so free in so many ways. And I think we take a lot of that for granted too, right? And I think that became acutely more present during the pandemic and not being able to travel the world and all the things that we got to do, right? So for me, that's what I started to see is, gosh, am I really free? And if not, why not? And who signed me up for all this, right? And just going back to that, reconnecting to what does freedom even mean to me? And where did I get the definition of freedom from, right? So really having to unravel all those pieces. So yeah, I think knowing what we value is so key. And then really defining it for ourselves. Like, what does that actually mean? How would that show up? How will I know when I'm free? And that's then what led me to share that tool, which I share in my coaching, which is to be, do, have, to really create our lives from that space, which is so much more powerful than how we're taught of like, oh, I want to have this thing, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'll be happy or be whatever. And it actually is like, no, be that now, be happy, be free, be those things you want to be, which will inspire you to do, and then you'll have X. So it's just a different way of looking at it. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So speaking of definitions, and I'm going to stick with you, Micole, for this next question. I'll come around to you for it, Jamie, is what does sacred space even mean to you?
Gosh. Well, I am a meditation and yoga teacher as well. I work for Chopra Global, which is Deepak Chopra's organization, and I've worked there for over a decade. So when I think of sacred, to me, it's really deep, within the yoga teachings, and been around for centuries, right? This devotion and creating a space to do your daily sadhana or practices in. So for me, what I found about sacred space, Maui being one of them, and during the pandemic, when the Chopra Center could no longer do live events, which I was going to live events and retreating, to silent retreats and all these great things for years, like 3 or 4 times a year. And then when I didn't have that, it was like, oh my gosh, that is such a missing for me right now. So that sacred space to go to Maui and just be in my uncle's space, which is such a sacred space. He's a huge meditator himself. He's my mentor as a coach. So like, talk about like the juiciest place to get to go and retreat and just be and meditate and walk on the beach and just like soak it all in. So that for me, that sacredness is where I really can connect, like go deep within.
You're of course making me think of that part of that literal space for me. And I know in Maui it is nature, right?
Absolutely. It is. And the energy of Hawaii, right? Is just, and I always said that because we would travel there and I've had family there my whole life. And, literally when you step off the plane, it's like time just slows down. You feel it the minute you get there, right? The energy just shifts. It's just it just is so inviting.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Micole. So Jamie, when you think of sacred spaces, what does this mean to you?
Well, first, I just want to say, Micole, I've not been to Maui, but now it's kind of top my bucket list, which my bucket list is quite long at this point. But what you were talking about slowing down, and when you get to Maui, how you naturally slow down, made me think that is how I feel whenever I travel. I feel that same way, regardless of whether I've been there or not. The adventure, the exploration, being invited into a chance to see a new culture, new foods. But when I think of the answer to your question, Laura, which is where is my sacred space personally, it still comes back to my collections, but most specifically, we have been collecting bowls throughout the past 20 years of travel. They're about the size of a cereal bowl, and we didn't even know we were collecting bowls until when I mentioned before that we moved to Japan and unpacked them. They had been scattered all over our apartment in New York City. And each bowl came from a different country and was sort of our memento. And I think that all the years we've traveled and also have we've moved to quite a few places in the past 10, 20 years, that my sacred space is really wherever those collections are and those bowls are. Because I've loved everywhere I've lived. And I think so much of it has to do with bringing those collections along because of the memories that they hold.
I love that. I actually was talking to my mom the other day, and you're talking about Japan made me think of this. And she's about to move for the first time in her life to another state, and she'll be turning 75 next week. So it's a big adventure for her to move. But the moving and the packing has created this, oh, look at that thing that I have, that collection that I have. We were just talking about it. I was actually talking about you and telling her a little bit about the chapter that you wrote. And I love it. And I love the way, so thank you to both of you for stepping up with the vulnerable story to allow us to have the window into your life, to get to know you a little bit. But then all of the authors in the book, y'all are master teachers. And so we're going to have this way to practice, right? And the way, all of the different ways to practice, you all are offering these gifts of awareness. So Jamie, here's the question. Awareness, I believe, is everything when it comes to healing and transformation and really understanding those things. I feel lucky that my life has really been dedicated to that practice, but some people's haven't, and I want them to benefit from this conversation, right? So I want you to share, if you can think of one of the other kinds of ways you practice that awareness in your day. So before you answer that, my example is always this: like when I wake up in the morning and my eyes open, I have a practice where before I'm moving the covers to run to the bathroom, I am moving to gratitude. And I very purposefully take the breaths, clear the mind of whatever the dream was, or if that's happening or whatever. And then I just feel my comfy self in the covers and the pillow and the heat in my room, the bed I'm laying in, right? And I just move into gratitude. That's part of my awareness practice. There's so many ways we practice. What's one of yours?
It's really made me think hearing you say that. I will say that I'm by nature someone who likes to hibernate, which is kind of strange because I love to travel so much. I'm either 3,000 miles away, or I'm in my house or in my bed. But with that said, I was thinking to myself kind of what my daily practice is. And when I wake up, I do really take a hard look around my space, my room, out the window, the sunrise. I often keep the curtains open to watch the sunrise. If it's an especially gorgeous one, like it was the other day where it was all reds and oranges, I try not to run for my camera and I try to just watch it. And the easing into my day for me does sometimes involve meditation, but I would say my meditation is walking my dogs. So I get a lot of peace from spending a good hour of the day, hopefully not on my phone while I'm walking them, but just really kind of enjoying the nature and the dogs running around. So that is definitely a part of my routine. But I would say, going a little bit backwards, I really love being in my house and walking around my house and the comfort I get from this space in my house. Is a big part of my day.
Really nice. Awesome. Thank you. Micole, how about you? So just giving us a window into your awareness practice, and heck, you've made your life about this. So, right, I'm sure there's like so many different ways, but what's one of the ones that comes to you?
Well, I have made the commitment to myself, especially in the last year, probably more like 18 months or so ago now, to wake up and have the very first hour of my day be all about me and my meditation. I do a little bit of stretching, maybe some light reading or journaling, really using that first hour of the day to connect to self. and without picking up my phone for that first hour. I think, and I coach people a lot around this, there's so much distractions now, as we were talking about before, just needing to slow down. And, you know, we wake up in the morning and the first thing we do is pick up our phone, and next thing we know, we're pulled into an email or a text or, you know, somebody else's agenda for us. And I think that energy, right, then we just take it with us throughout the day, and it just leads to this anxiety and again, just the distractions. There's so many distractions all day long. So starting that or continuing that practice of that first hour of the day being dedicated to me, right, and my own practices, whatever that looks like, has really made a huge difference.
That's really nice. I think that from that energized place, then you can serve. And so if you set your day up right like that, then it just lasts throughout the day. Y'all are making me think of one that I haven't really talked about in these interviews yet, but I think is so important. And there's something that I practice regularly when there's someone else in my room, in the house with me, or I'm out and about and there's actual people, right? But I'm thinking about this instance when the kids were back for Thanksgiving break. And I have a pretty empty nest these days, but of course everyone was back and we were all in the house, sharing the bathroom and doing all the things, right? But the awareness practice for me that's been so profound is watching myself and my thoughts when I'm interacting. And how am I reacting? Am I responding or reacting? What am I thinking? Am I judging? And this, of course, could be with anybody that you're talking to. And it doesn't have to be kids or family members. It could be total strangers. But to have a daily practice of watching my own thoughts, reactions, responses, and noticing the sensations in my body that are connected to those interactions, for me, has been life-changing. And I think sometimes when we think about awareness, we start to use the M word, meditation, you know, and everyone's like, oh, what? No, I mean, every moment is an opportunity to be aware of something, right? And it is really a life-changing practice. So I'm going to ask both of you about that since I brought it up. Micole, how about you with that one? What about that in your life has been, you know, just tell me a little bit about that piece.
Well, yeah, what you're speaking to is about being present. And when you're in a conversation with someone, we're so used to listening for how we're going to respond or what we're going to say. You know, real listening is getting exactly what the other person is saying. And so I'm a communication major. So communication is a huge interest of mine. And actually how people don't communicate is more interesting to me. And I'm a little bit of a nerd in this area. You know, I like to say I take myself on as my own experiment. And that's what you're pointing to, Laura, like really like observing the thoughts. Like we call it the monkey mind because it swings from vine to vine. If you really start to notice it, and the thoughts make no sense sometimes, right? Where it goes and how it goes. So my mind and where my mind wants to go. But as a coach, and I'm a mentor coach for Chopra coaching certification. So I'm teaching coaches to be coaches. And so much of it is about listening and presence. And that's really what people come to coaches for, is to be heard and to get reflected back what they're saying they really want. Because people don't have that experience of really being heard by other people. And so it's such a value to hold that space for, you know, create a safe space for whatever wants to come up. And then to say back to them, well, what I heard you are really committed to is this. And how can we, you know, take the steps to get you there? So I get to do what I absolutely love doing every single day. So I just feel so blessed, and that then makes or allows me to be more present and listen to people in my life in a different way.
Micole,
Yeah.
I feel like I need to hire you then, because that's exactly what I need.
Yes, most
because
people do.
it's
Yeah.
exactly, I'm listening to you thinking, I think I need a life coach. Uh,
Yay.
I agree. And listening to what you're both saying, I am flipping to the other side where I definitely need to work on being more present. And when someone's speaking to me, instead of anticipating what they're going to say or coming up with what I want to ask them next, rather than fully hearing what they say first.
Mhm.
So that is something I am aware of and working on, and definitely strive for. So I loved hearing what you just said, Micole. It really struck home.
Yeah, it's so true. We, especially nowadays, again, we're pulled in so many different directions, and we're not present. We're multitasking. We're doing all of these crazy things that we're not designed to do. Multitasking, we're not meant for that. And it's no wonder now there's so,
Uh-oh.
because
She's-
that's anxiety. Sorry, did I freeze up? Anxiety, mental health is such a conversation now because everybody has some sort of anxiety going on about the world and so much fear around everything. So, I mean, no time like the present to hire a coach. And not everybody wants a therapist, right? Someone just wants to go to someone to, again, be listened to and to maybe get help with what's my purpose in this world. Everybody became really clear, I think, through the pandemic that life is uncertain. And what am I giving my time and energy to? If we didn't look at that, I think we missed the whole point.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree with that.
Yeah,
I think
so it's just an opportunity. Yeah.
I think for our listeners too, that it's interesting to talk about sacred spaces in terms of between two people, the sacred space between two people who may or may not be having a conversation, but I'm kind of thinking about the conversation because there's the active listening going on, you hope. There's a person expressing and that unique expression happening, active listening happening over here. Between those two things happening is definitely could be a very sacred space. Imagine all of the possibility that happens there between two people, right? And yeah, that's why I love talking about all of these topics. And again, for you all listening today, this book that we're about to put out is a collaboration of all of the different kinds of ways to think about this and live in that sacred space and however you think about it. And we did, the subtitle is Mind, Body, and Home. That was purposeful so that you would understand that the thoughts matter, that the body matters, that the environment that you're in, no matter where you are, matters, right? I love talking about that. So Micole, so the thing that I want to help people with is when you are stuck on the journey, there's a lot of versions of stuck, right? And as a coach, you know this, but for someone who's listening today and they just really need an easy entry point, something simple to start with, they might be struggling with all of the different things that you mentioned earlier, the fears, the pain, the uncertainty. Oh my gosh, right now the uncertainty is so huge and overwhelming. What would be something that you would offer to them as an easy place to start on this journey that we're on?
So appropriate. I'm a mom. I have two boys who are now adults, 20 and 23 years old. So this is coming up a lot for my younger son, just not knowing what he wants to do in the world or where he wants to be or where he fits in. And so, that can be difficult at that age and thinking we have to have it all figured out. And then the pandemic and so much fear around everything, as we said. And so what I said to him is, when we all get stuck, it's human for that to happen. And so not judging when that happens, because it's the judgment that keeps us stuck, right? It's, I should know better. And, then we beat ourselves up and we think that that's going to get us out of where we're at. And what I said to him, it's not a weakness to ask for help. when we get stuck, ask for help. See, we seek out a friend, right? Or someone that we can share or vent to. And what I just said about hiring a coach or reaching out to someone for assistance, it's not a weakness. It's actually, people want to help us. People, want to give to us in that way. And then when we don't ask, we cut them off from that. So as I said before, it's just this opportunity to share and to be willing. And it does take vulnerability to say, I need help. Like I can't figure this out on my own. So that's really what I said to him today, in fact, to ask for help. It's okay. We all do it. Even as a parent, I don't know what to do for him, right? And that's not my area of expertise. So I had to ask for help too. So it kind of goes round and round.
That's a big one. Yeah, really nice.
People are not good at asking, especially women, right? We do all the things, and that therefore it's like we can't stop or we've been taught we can't stop and ask. It's crazy. Yeah.
So Jamie, how about you? What would you offer to someone who's just feeling stuck as just an easy way to shift the energy? Subtle shifts, right? That's what we're talking about here.
Yes, I know what I do, so I can speak to what I do, what works for me. Whenever I feel stuck creatively, I get outside, or I exercise, or sometimes those two things are one and the same. Whether I get on the exercise bike with great music and somehow just letting my mind go through music and exercise, I find that I get really inspired and much more creative. So that's a huge help for me. Taking walks. I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm lucky enough to have a lot of really wonderful wooded areas nearby. But even if I didn't, all those years I lived in New York City, just walking and observing really clears my mind. And that's how I get more energy and more creative that way. I try to leave my phone behind sometimes for that, although I would lie if I say that I did that all the time. But I do find that that's the best way I can clear my head and get more creative. And that gives me so much more energy and drive.
I love that. I'm chuckling to myself because what I do is I combine a few of those things. I love to drive. I love my car. I get in the car, I blast the music, I drive to the nature walk, and then I do my nature thing. Like I love to combine all of the things, but music for sure. And for me lately, music without words that I can write to, because I'm a poet and I love sitting down to just journal or write whatever's moving through me, whether it's a poem or something else. But writing for me is one of the ways I shift the energy. And really, you guys, a deep breath, like just remembering, how you can catch yourself somewhere in your day and realize you haven't taken one deep breath. They've all been shallow and a little bit constricted. And so just even to change your posture a little bit, take that big pelvic bowl breath and move into the gratitude that you can do that. That's a shift. It's one of my favorite ones. So to both of you, Jamie, Micole, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you both. I'm excited for this and to read every chapter in that book. I'm very excited.
Yes. So nice to be with you ladies. Thank you. Thank you, Laura, for everything.
You're welcome. Laura. I want all of our listeners to just understand, all you got to do is scroll down a little bit to the show notes, because I have these two beautiful ladies' websites hooked up there for you. If you want to learn more about what they said today, something sparked your perspective, and you're wondering about that. One of the biggest missions that I have with our book projects is that you're going to get amazing stories and nuggets and practical tools to practice. And sometimes you get to the end of the book and you're like, well, now what? Well, you're looking at now what, because all of our authors are very generously there waiting for you to ask the next question, reach out for support. and do that, explore, see what they're up to. They are up to some awesome things in the world. So I invite you to do that. And I also invite you all to join us for our live stream book launch party. It's going to be on January 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern. We're going to gather with all of the Sacred Spaces authors, and we'll be doing some fun giveaways that day. You're going to find us on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page for that. I've got you hooked up down below for that as well. And if you're listening to this after July, oh my God, where am I? January 4th, then head over to Amazon, because that means the book is ready for you and you can grab your copy. And lastly, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.